Yeah, so just introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Daniel from the harmonica movement.
And where did you start the day today?
Yeah, so I started the day in Aberdeen, got up at 4:30, and I think that's 24 hours of travelling, and we were in Nashville.
And is this your first time?
First time ever in Nashville.
So Running Club is going to Nashville. This city is church and music. All of the major Christian publishers, record labels, recording studios happen to be in Nashville. So it's the Hollywood of Christian music. And I have this opportunity to take some of these guys out there to a big songwriting conference where they'll be mixing with people who are way more experienced, way more established than them. And it's going to be really interesting taking these guys into that environment, because if they're going to fulfill their potential, then the people in Nashville need to get it. And so we do have it sounds like to someone who didn't grow up in the church, it sounds like the worst kind of trip. But we do have fun, I promise. And there's eating together, drinking together, hanging out, travelling together, and people do pray for each other. And there's an element of deep relationship that's formed through that. I'm Chris Lawson-Jones. I've worked in Christian music for over 15 years. I've seen it grow and grow in the face of the great music industry recession. I believe we're entering a new era of Christian music. Something's brewing. With Stormzy, Chance the Rapper, Bieber, and many others drawing on Christianity for inspiration. And with this stuff I'm hearing coming through now, I'm convinced the Christian world is making the kind of music that's truly exceptional. What if there was a label for this music? What Sub Pop was for grunge in Seattle, what Ministry of Sound was for dance in London, what Motown was for, Motown. That's a big ambition, isn't it? It is, but I've got 8 months to find out. 8 months where I'm going to be taking this new label, Running Club Records, from a pipe dream to a first single.
I've been really excited about this episode because it's got all the trappings of your perfect reality TV show. First of all, the characters. It's got the high stakes. It's got the competitions and winners and losers. Except for in this case, we want everyone to win. Let's start with our characters.
Okay, so we've got Daniel, the lead singer of Harmonica Movement.
And God is wild and reckless. He will love you at all times.
I'm coming in with total fresh eyes, so I have no idea what to expect. Except from I'm a small fish in a big pond here, the smallest fish.
And if you could achieve one thing this week and take it away, what would that be?
Just to make some new friends, get some good advice, and hopefully write a good song. That'd be pretty cool.
Daniel is a real music guy, real music fan, great songwriter, raw talent, but he's never done anything like this. If you like, he's a bit of an underdog in this situation, but I'm also aware that I don't need to worry too much. It's not entirely my responsibility, because I can see that his faith gives him a sense of quiet confidence and assurance that God will be with him. In fact, he would attribute the doors opening in the first place to God, and therefore if God has opened the doors, then God will go with him, isn't going to set him up for a failure. And I can see that in Daniel. I can see that sense of quiet confidence and assurance.
So calm as you are.
So next we have Junior Gar, an incredibly talented songwriter and worship leader from South London. Grew up in the gospel church, so around some of the most amazing musicians in our country. And I don't think I've met many people who have as much raw talent and raw potential as Junior. He's probably got the most immediate potential to cross over to the US, and it's going to be a game changer when we press go on that record. And Junior comes from a great heritage of Christian families and ministers and people who have given their lives to the church. You can see that he's seeped in that kind of tradition, and he's bringing his own spin on it, his own interpretation on it, and he's completely passionate about it. He Instagram stories all day, Bible verses, encouragements to people, and it really does define who he is.
My name is Junior Gar. I want to personally invite you to join me and my friends as we worship together.
So then there's Jonathan Ogden, lead singer of Rivers and Robots from Manchester.
There's nobody like you. There's nobody like you.
And Jonathan is one of the most creative people I have ever met. But the interesting thing about him is he's relatively shy.
Traditionally, I've been writing songs just on my own and only really known how to do it on my own until probably about last year, and had a few awkward sessions of just sitting with people and not going very well. Yeah, I think just learning to open up and share a bit more and being willing to share ideas that aren't fully polished yet and see how it comes about.
Taking Jonathan to Nashville, it's going to be fascinating for me because I'm asking him to go into an environment with some pretty confident Americans who are used to these kind of environments, and I totally believe he's going to be cool, but it's going to be interesting to see how he gets on in that.
What strikes me about Jonathan is you're taking him to Nashville, which is this ultimate embodiment of this kind of American new wave of Christian music, Hillsong, loud, Bieber screaming with girls screaming about Jesus. And yeah, he's kind of the opposite of that.
Almost by accident, he's completely usurping that vibe. And Jonathan and Rivers and Robots are tapping into a whole group of people who don't express themselves in that way, who are looking for something different, a different way of relating to God, a different way of worshipping God. So last we have Danny Callahan.
I'm confined by borders, never left these shores.
Danny is a songwriter and a worship leader from London, and he has been moving in these kind of underground churchy circles for a few years, and almost has I would say cult status, but that would be weird given the nature of what we're doing. But he has that kind of status amongst millennial worshippers and Christians in the UK.
So coming from the UK, how do you think the music that you're making would it relate here?
I think so, because I think it's different. I think culture, when things are different and varied, I think it does resonate with people and can resonate with people differently. When I go to a new city or when I go to a new place, I'm always inspired by the way that people see the world or see other things. You're surrounded by writers, you're surrounded by musicians. Everybody's a singer-songwriter. So you kind of have to up your game in a way, so.
It's kind of early days for Danny, so I'm taking him there to put him on people's radar, to get people to know him, to like him, so that when I bring him up in different conversations, people have an idea of who he is. It's like, oh yeah, Danny, he's a great guy, I hung out with him there. But also it's for him to gain an experience.
So what does Nashville look like through the eyes of a bunch of Christian British musicians?
It's just on a whole different scale. There's police roadblocks to manage traffic on the way into churches.
Yes, this is crazy. So they have police managing the traffic just to get into church
there, whereas we're trying to desperately get people into churches in the UK. It's just a completely different culture.
No, I bet, but I'm only allowed to turn left from the left lane. That was the rules. Oh, I've seen it. Thank you. Sorry, broke the rules. I'll repent.
So coming from the UK where Christianity isn't as present, how did it feel to drive up to these churches with thousands of people? Did you like that?
Yeah, I think there's a sense of being able to wear your heart on your sleeve a bit more. And that when you say you work in Christian music, you're not going to get a kind of quizzical frown from people. They're going to have a grid for what that is. And be interested, maybe even excited about that. So, yeah, I feel like I can probably relax a bit more out there because it's less alien than it is here in the UK.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because you're a little bit more kind of guarded about that stuff in London. So I was wondering if you were did you slip into being a little bit more kind of open and...
Oh, yeah. I bring out all the cliches, carry my Bible around.
Did you actually?
No, because it's on my phone. So this songwriting retreat is a gathering of a number of professional Christian music songwriters. So this was like the next excursion, because we were leaving the city and we were going out to this retreat place in like middle Tennessee. So it's kind of like an hour drive from Nashville. And so as we're driving down there, things are starting to get more and more rural, more and more remote. And it was really fun just kind of seeing everybody make that transition from the big city to the countryside. Did you see that sign on the side of the road as well? Prepare to meet thy God.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Probably get murdered here. For sure.
Yeah. Population, not as much as yesterday.
I've had a gun pulled out of me in America.
Really?
Where?
The last trip. So when I went to Yosemite, I stayed at this random old place called the Red Rooster Lodge.
Oh, that already sounds bad.
Yeah, it was rough. It was basically someone's house, and it was really hard to navigate to. And I pulled up to the house, which I thought was the house that I was going to be staying in, and it was basically the neighbour. And this crazy pit bull jumped on the hood of my car.
No.
And I've tried flashing and beeping to try and get him off, and then started to move back, and the guy came out with a shotgun. And pointed it right at me.
Were you on your own?
I was on my own. I have never in my life been so scared.
Oh,
I was terrified.
What happened?
As soon as he saw how scared I was, he put the gun down and was fine. But I was shaking, like cold sweats.
yeah.
It was madness.
Yeah.
That is crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's quite a story.
Petrified.
Looks smaller than in the photographs. Hey, brother.
Josh!
How you doing?
Dude, how are you?
I'm good.
How are
I'm
you?
looking forward to seeing you.
I know, man.
Yeah.
Are you just podcasting right
Yeah.
now? Hey, what's up, guys? Just want to bestow some wisdom upon you right now.
This is Travis.
Very nice to meet you.
Danny, good to meet you.
Donnie, nice to meet you. You got a
Daniel.
cool accent, man. Hey, how
So
are
the
you?
fun thing about this is that these guys are going to be in the room with some of their musical heroes, and these musical heroes wouldn't be like household names to most people, but they're like the Christian music equivalent of members of the Beatles or Bruce Springsteen or Adele, kind of that kind of personality. And we're just throwing everyone kind of together, but there's a great sense of kind of equality once everybody's there, and there's not really big egos walking around or anything like that.
Yeah, and I mean, something that struck me over getting to know this world is how closely faith and creativity are linked. So how, can you tell me a little bit more about how those kind of feed into each other?
Yeah, I mean, the one good thing we have going for us when we're writing songs for the church is we have a very big book of things written down which you can lift directly from and put to music, and you can't really go wrong because no one kind of argues with anything that's come from the Bible, because sometimes those verses from the Bible are so simple and profound. It's like you wouldn't ban a pop writer from using the word love just because it's been used before, because it's such a powerful word. It evokes so much in everybody that hears that word. But you would try and find a new way to talk about love, or a new way to describe a feeling or a dynamic in a relationship, but love is the central theme, and that's never going to get less powerful as long as we're on the planet. It's the same thing with the Bible. It's the same thing with what we sing about. The source is always going to be the same. It's just trying to find different ways of saying it. So the fun thing about having Jonathan there for the week was seeing him really kind of grow and get to know a lot of people that he hadn't met before. And a lot of people would say, "Oh, you're that guy from that band. Oh, wow, I love that." And I think that was really encouraging to him. And I heard a couple of songs that he had been part of writing that week, and they were great.
So, what are we? 2 days into the writing thing?
I think so.
One of these guys that you're writing with is a Grammy-nominated songwriter.
Yeah.
Like, any nerves, like, going into that?
I think it was more just going in as a learning experience, I think. Like, I think I have nerves generally of just writing songs.
Okay.
Whoever it's with. But, no, it's cool. I mean, it's just good to be with people that are experienced at it and kind of know what they're doing. So.
And the song that's been demoed, could you see that becoming something that you take on, or is it for someone else?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, it feels quite corporate. I think it could work in any context, really. But it's a cool song. It's kind of like based on just like thankfulness, and we had a lot of like discussion around the theme of what we were writing about, and we were kind of talking about like how God's given things to us, and like we're thankful in that position. And there's that chorus that you can sing of like, what can I give and what can I give back? And then we started thinking like, why do we feel like we have to give something back when like God freely gave it for us, kind of thing. So it's a really simple song, but like the chorus is basically just thank you, and then we like built around that. So,
and for people who haven't written a song before, like how does something go from being nothing to something in the space of a few hours? Did it start with a word or a note, or?
Yeah, I think for this one we kind of had just rough melody and chords together, and then we just had the first line of the song, and that kind of like set the theme, and we just tried singing different things with the melody and tried to see what fit.
So
I think these gatherings are actually a great leveler. So everybody, what I realised when I looked around the room is most people here are a really big deal where they come from, but when they're in this room, they're not around anybody else they're around their peers, who are also a big deal wherever they come from. So it's actually a great leveler. And I think there's actually a sense of, rather than competition, I think there's actually a sense of camaraderie and relief in that these are people they can relax with, who have shared experiences, know what it's like to be like the high profile musician in their church or whatever. And often the challenge is getting them to actually write a song rather than just sit and talk and like say, no way, man, that's amazing, that happened to you. And wow, that's so cool. Like, I'd never thought about that in that way.
And kind of witnessing what's going on in the UK with millennials and a younger Christian audience, were you finding parallels in the US?
That was the big revelation for me of this trip, was that something that I had, and not just me, but we had sort of picked up on in the UK, was actually happening in the US as well. The penny didn't drop for me fully until I had a conversation with a US counterpart who just started talking in exactly the same way that I'd been talking in the UK. His name is David Leonard. He was in a band called All Sons and Daughters. They wrote a song called Great Are You, Lord, which is one of the most popular songs in the Western church at the moment. And he's someone I really look up to.
There's a new wave of worship that's coming, man, that's like, that crosses all lines between secular and church music, and like is able to hang in. Watching the Grammys this year, so many songs were about spiritual things. Sam Smith, I don't believe you, but I'm praying to you. But people will gravitate to something that is real and vulnerable, and they can feel it, and they know that it's real.
So there's a groundswell of it.
Yeah,
and that's why
it's so grassroots right now.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. What's so encouraging to me is it's the same thing that's happening in the UK.
Yeah.
It's this whole reason we're starting a running club, because we need a home for it.
Yeah.
It's not something we're trying to make happen, it's already happening.
Our desires are the same things.
Yeah. Well, that's what's been so encouraging to me, because we've been just trying to figure this out in the UK, and then talking to you guys, and the exact same thing is bubbling away here.
We're already doing it.
Yeah.
Both of us.
Yeah. And it's just scooping them up and giving them a home and somewhere to meet the others that are all doing it in isolation and things. So
the underdog is always the most dangerous person.
Definitely.
And it's like, I feel like that's who we are. It's like no one is paying attention to what's going on over here.
Next time on Running Club Records.
As far as I could tell, everybody was having a good time.
In terms of when it comes to me, not as a person, but as an artist, just, I wanted to pose the question, how serious do you see me as an artist? Because maybe in my head I wasn't fully convinced of that, or I just wanted to have that really honest chat.
This episode of Running Club Records was produced by me, Lily Ames. Sound design was by Ned Porter, and consultation was provided by Jonty Herman and Gavin Haynes. And if you're liking the podcast, you can follow the story in real time online. Follow Running Club Records on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And check them out at runningclubrecords.com.